Ahoy there, guys! It's Captain KT. We are back at it with another video on Hearthkin Salvagers. So today we're seeing a familiar face. I brought in the grumpy dwarf himself, Bart Lewandowski, to talk about the team. I'm certainly very terrified of his Salvagers. I know a lot of other British players are. How are you doing today, Bart?
I'm not too bad, thank you, Dan, and thanks for having me. I guess there's way too much bad online on YouTube, especially talking about Kill Team. But yeah, here we are. How are you today?
I'm good. I'm good. Been, stabbing people with some plasma knives, so always a good time.
Like right in the knees, right?
Right in the knees. You know, head level for us, but
Exactly, exactly.
okay, so the elephant in the room, to my mind, is the team strong? Are they competitively viable? Because whenever salvages are brought up, I get laughed at, maybe for the size difference, but I feel like ever since their potential with the Alpha Strike with this crack grenade has been lost, a lot of people have been totally lost with what to do with them. But what do you think? Are they strong? Are they viable? Would you play them to try and win a tournament?
I mean, I have played them in many tournaments. I have won many tournaments with them, including pre-buffs, post nerfs, and before they got mm, compensation buff last time. So it's not that would I take them? I do take them, and I do play them competitively, and I happen to be so lucky to win like majority of those games. So I think they are competitively viable. I guess part of that is, or part of the reason for that is that the meta is quite okay for them. They play well into the top of the meta game, and maybe apart from Mandrakes, but that's a horrible matchup. Like every team should have one. This is ours. Um, yeah, and overall, I think this team is very viable. And when it comes to the Alpha Strike, I'm one of those people who are happy to declare a very heretical approach and say that the Alpha Strike was never a good thing, and the reason for that the investment was way too high, and the sacrifice in form of the Jam-Pack Warrior was way too high to balance out what you could potentially gain out of that. And like people look at Jam-Pack Warrior, like I guess maybe I'm getting too early into the detail about the operative, but people look at the Jam-Pack Warrior thinking about him as just a threat, and he's more than that. He's a massive zoning tool that will allow you to balance the fact that other teams that may be faster than you can get closer to you. So as long as you have him ready, then that means that you can potentially zone out your opponent and keep them slightly further away, so they can't just say, "Oh, I can't reach you, but you can't reach me on your short legs. I'm gonna kill you no matter what." So I would say that the Alpha Strike was never a good thing, but that was at least my opinion. And even if you wanted to do it, I would delay it by a turning point or two. So I would do it at end of TP2 or even TP3 to guarantee a better outcome when it's actually of a higher relevance, where it was of higher relevance. But yeah, there's that. But yeah, overall, I think the team is strong enough to compete. They don't really have too many bad matchups. They have, as of now, they have one good tackle. They used to have plant beacons, but of course that's gone. But yeah, these days I think it's the retrieval. But yeah, we can get into that later. But yeah, overall, I think the team is strong.
Okay, so certainly some controversial takes there. Uh, I think
Oh
I
yeah, I
agree
may
with
be
them,
wrong.
but
Like if I'm wrong, I'm happy to be wrong and keep playing them uh, by myself.
I think it's always interesting to hear people have different takes on teams. In my opinion, it sort of you see different stuff happening with them. But what to you is appealing about the team? Why would you play Hearthkin over, say, another mid-range team like I don't know, Battleclade?
Well, like for me personally, why do I say that if I'm wrong, then I'm happy to be wrong. I'm going to continue playing them by myself. The reason for that is like my first encounter with Games Workshop was back in the old days of Warhammer Fantasy Battle. And I used to play dwarves, so I have got huge sentiments for this race and the faction. So I even like incorporated some of the fantasy dwarfs into my team for Halfkin Salvagers. So that is a huge factor for me when it comes to as to why I'm playing the team in the first place. Um, and that is very appealing to me. But to get to more technical or more competitive side of the answer to your question, I would say the reason why I like them is that when I choose my team, I like it to do very specific things. And I like to have some decent firepower, which they have. I like to have some melee capability, which they do have. Like Battleclade doesn't, for instance. These guys do. Um, they can offer you some high APL bursts where you want to do multiple things in one go, which can swing the game your way. So that's another thing which I like about them. And overall, I think they just suit my playstyle. They're quite tough to shift and durable enough for me to enjoy playing the team. Well, I found, for instance, playing hordes and teams with high model count is that sometimes I can see that my opponent does something which I see, okay, in my assessment, this is a mistake. And then because I'm playing a horde team, it takes me 3 or 4 activations to dispatch with that model. And in the process, I'm losing half of the operatives that try to achieve that outcome. Whereas with mid-range teams like dwarves, you have, let's say, a higher degree of certainty, or you're closer to certainty that you're actually going to punish your opponent for something you consider as a misposition or bad placement on the board. So there's that. So yeah, like all those factors combined, they make me feel comfortable playing the team. But as like many players have different views and than I do, and every single one of us is different, and that we like different things about Kill Team and particular teams as well. So, I guess, as I said, I may be wrong, or I may just like different aspects of the game, and yeah, other people will have different assessment.
Well, I like the beamer. Okay.
Yeah, the
uh,
problem with the beamer is that whenever I see that pattern, I see, okay, so if this happens, I'm gonna get there. I'm gonna shoot you with, I don't know, triple grad through 2 or 3 other operatives, and that should win me the game. It usually does nothing,
oh
and
no.
then I lose the beamer. It's like a running bad beat story that I have, and I had multiple tournaments where I did have that play. I did try to pull it off, and then it either lost me the game or almost lost me the game because Beamer just fizzled and didn't do a single point of damage, or just dealt like, oh, I'm gonna deal 1 point of damage here, 1 point of damage there, and one crit worth of damage to the original target, and it's like, huh, it's not that great actually. So yeah, but I do like the Beamer because it's another zoning tool, so to say.
How do you think they are into the current and coming meta then? So you sort of briefly touched on like, oh, you think that they can compete, but probably I'd say at the moment we're seeing a lot of Wolf Scouts, we're seeing a lot of Canoptech Circle. As you said, we are seeing a fair amount of Mandrakes, which is quite harsh, but I feel like elites are very popular right now, and probably will be after the changes, especially when Murder Wing drop if they tend to be on the stronger side of teams.
Yeah, so starting with let's say the general take, I think that they're quite good, as I said. Um, the reason for that is that I see that Mandrakes are the worst matchup that the team has. Then when it comes to Marines, they've got big guns, so they're quite decent in the Marines in general. Of course, there are like better matchup Marines and worse matchup Marines. For instance, I think Nemclaw is one of the better matchup Marines, and whenever I play against Nemclaw, I see the other players sweat, and I can see it in many cases there's not much that they can do to actually come out ahead. Yeah, they can pull out their tricks, but at the end of the game, it's much easier for me to come out on top than for them. Wolf Scouts will be one of the more difficult elite matchups for Halfkin, and the reason for that is the threat range that they have. However, I would say this is a fairly even matchup. So if you know what you're doing more than your opponent does, then there's a chance that you're going to come out on top. It's like a fairly okay matchup. You just need to be very careful about where do you position your models to trade efficiently, because in most cases you have to get it within their threat range if you want to have them within yours, which means that you need to plan how the trades are going to go and maybe think of some equipment positioning so that you can actually make it asymmetrical again. So there's that. And yeah, that's what I would say about the Wolf Scouts matchup. When it comes to Canoptech, the interesting thing about Canoptech and all the other teams that would like to play Plant Banner, Plant Banner is a very bad decision into Halfkin, because you take your excavation shovels and you just dig it out from underneath their feet, take it on your back, and if they kill you, you drop it on their side of the board so they don't score. And if they try to pick it up, and I've had that case many times over, when my opponent said, "Okay, I'm going to kill the guy who picked up my banner. Okay, I'm going to drop it on your side." And then they say, "Oh, I've got an operative that says free APL, so I'm going to move next to the banner, pick it up, and drop it back again on your side." I said, "No, you can't do it, because you're not allowed to pick up and drop a marker in the same activation. That's one of the core rules." So then they find themselves in a situation where they can come to the banner, pick it up, but then they cannot drop it. So you can potentially kill that operative again, and they drop it on your side. But guess what? You've got excavation tools. You'll pick it up for free, and they don't score it again. So in a way, there is so much you can do to counter Plant Banner with that team. It makes it a not viable tack up in many cases. Yes, you have to be careful as to your prediction as to where the banner will go and all of that. But in most games that I have, if anyone chooses plan banner, I typically manage to limit them down to like 2 victory points out of that tops, because they will usually have a spot somewhere where I may just simply struggle to get to. So there's that. But where does it leave us? That leaves us in a place where we have more operatives than they do, and the tack up play, if we don't get into the trade of war, I think favors Halfkin. So in a way, I think that at least based on my experience playing into Canoptic Circle, um, you can come out of top slightly. It's not like a great matchup, but you can definitely play into Canoptic Circle. That's what I would say. Yeah, mandrakes are miserable. Very miserable. You can pull all your tricks. You can perform like few extra high level strats and tactics, and you can still lose, just because that team has a very particular set of skills to kill Halfkin Salvagers. So there's that. But all things considered, I think I like them into the current meta, because they play retrieval well. They can then, even if they lose an operative, they can drop the token, and then you can pick it up again for free with your excavation tool. So there's that. Because they're quite tough and not easy to shift. After all, you've got 10 bodies in power armors. That means that you can, in many cases, play not to give too much away on kill grade, and just play for a safe victory. And if your opponent makes a mistake, try to get more ahead, which leaves you in a position where you can win many games, maybe not by a huge margin. So do not expect to score like 20, 21 victory points every single game, but scoring like between 14 and 16, 17 and getting a win is definitely viable.
Definitely, that buff to wrought defense has meant that for any kind of shooting teams, it's incredibly difficult to kill them. I found.
Yeah, so here's the thing. I don't think in most cases you actually need to play that ploy. Um, I I think that this team needs to manage command points
Mm,
very well in a way that you need to remember that ideally turning point 2, 3, and 4 you want to have ancestors are watching up. Then turning
proximate
point 2,
firepower
3,
as
and
well, right?
4 you want to have proximate firepower. Sometimes you want proximate firepower. Um, turning so sometimes what you ends up happening is that turning point 4 you will need only ancestors are watching or only proximate firepower depending on the situation on the board, because you may be in a position where like, oh, I'm not going to use ancestors are watching because there's the only thing I can do is just move and shoot or something, so there's that. um, but like you still would want to have access to 6 command points spread between ancestors are watching and proximate firepower, and that's already a lot. Sometimes you may want to use worth it. Sometimes you may want to use sturdy. But I would use sturdy only if it's on a very relevant operative that you actually don't want to lose. You do not expect to lose that operative until unless they spike with a bucket of crits. And when they do, this is where you make a decision. Okay, I did not expect to lose that operative if you were to shoot me with your regular normal damage. But now that you spiked, I may actually want to use sturdy to survive. But other than that, I wouldn't use it. You've got 10 operatives, so in many cases you can just trade as long as you're trading and not just giving operatives away.
Yep, makes plenty of sense to me. Put grudge tokens on them if you die as well, so that's also helps.
Yeah, I played so many games with Halfkin salvages that now it feels weird that whenever I lose an operative, I don't get to give them a grudge token. Like, it sounds funny, but like, I played so many games with them, and like, it comes down, it's like, okay, you kill me, here's your grudge token, I'm gonna like kill you easier now. But that only happens when you play dwarves, and I guess that's another reason as to why I like playing with this team so much. People in general playing kill team, we do like playing stuff and using abilities that would allow us to turn a miss into a hit or a hit into a crit.
Mm.
And in many cases, like if you were to get a ploy that allows you to spend a command point to do that, you'd be like, yeah, I'll take that one because it can help me secure a kill. Like look at what Brook Brothers have, right? With idolization. Now, I appreciate we don't get to turn misses into normals, but we get to oversaturate our opponents with so many crits that sometimes it doesn't matter that you hit with one less shot than you wanted to, because the others are criticals. So that helps a lot. So I guess that's another big reason as to why you would want to play that team.
Makes plenty of sense. Other teams, I guess you just have to hate them for no mechanical benefit. So that's a shame. Um,
Exactly.
what about some of the sort of selection choices of the team then? So of course, some teams like Star Striders don't get any choice with their roster. Hearthkin do. You could, maybe bring a medic. Obviously, I don't think you'd ever leave home without the comms. Have to bring the leader, etc. But like, what are some of the operatives you find yourself taking a lot? What are some of the ones you switch out? What are some of the equipment choices you take a lot? Again, I think I'd always bring plasma knives, and then tac ops. So you mentioned being a big fan of retrieval, but is there sort of any times you think you differ from that, switch away from it?
Yeah, so I'll start with the operatives. Of course, we're a 10-man team, so and we can take up to 3 gunners. So I'm going to start with the gunners. I almost never take 3 gunners. I usually stick to 2 gunners. You could say that the default position is plasma and missile launcher, because both of these um, have 5-6 base damage, which is really strong. And both of these have some mechanic to help you with zoning, again, to have your opponent position in a slightly less favorable way to them. So there's that. When it comes to other guns that I do like, is the Hylas rifle, so the 4.5 ceaseless rending one. This is your elf killer. it's amazing. And in many cases, if I ever do take a third gun into any team, that will be my third gun. It's extremely efficient, effective, and sometimes if you combine it with a balanced token, if you've got ceaseless and balanced and rending and grudge token, and all that does work together, you can even shoot them without proximate firepower, and it will still push through enough damage. So there's that. So this is my third favorite gunner, and probably number one if I play into elves. Then when it comes to rotor cannon, I think this is a gun I would typically take on Into the Dark or Tomb World if I have a plan for it, and on open I would only take it if there is a way for it to cover two objectives. If I don't see that, then I would leave it at home. And the last gunner, and this is the one that I like the least, is the Magna rifle. This gunner is just the worst gunner out of all. So far, I only found one use for it, and this is where you stack the grudge tokens on the edges and then try to kill it or put a huge chip in his armor with the mortal wounds. Otherwise, I hate that gun. I think it's not what you want to play in many cases. So these are the gunners I typically take two. When it comes to the operatives, I would always take apart from my two gunners. It's gonna be obviously the Thane, and I only use it in one of the two configurations. The default one is the plasma and power weapon. And if I'm playing into something like Mandrakes, I will switch the plasma into a revolver. Why the revolver? Because I like the 3-5 damage to potentially kill them with a crit hit.
Makes
And
sense.
hitting on threes helps. And piercing is not relevant, so that's why you would take it. Um, what else? We've got Jam Pack, which is an obvious auto take, best zoning tool, best operative in the team. Then Grenadier is the one I always take. I also always take my comms, who got a massive buff in the most recent balanced data slate. But then you've got the other two operatives, which I saw online that some people drop every now and then. I never drop these guys. Is the Lugger. The Lugger for his free mission action. He does wonders on Into the Dark or Tomb World. And the fifth equipment, which is actually extremely relevant in the world where you want to take excavation tools so often. So there you go. That's your guy. And my last operative that I always take is the Cognitab, because that balance reroll is so important to have, and boosts your reliability so much that I just can never leave him on the bench. So these are the six operatives that I take apart from my gunners every single game. So what does it leave us with? It leaves us with a dozer, a medic, and the locator. Dozer is the one that will come in as my another, like, I almost always take this operative in almost every single game, because he's such a flexible tool. But if you're playing into an opponent where he can kill, he is a great threat. He's also a good roadblock. He trades well thanks to that hit on death. So there's that. If you're playing into someone that is too tough for him to kill in melee, you use him in a completely different way. You can use him just to charge, punch someone out of combat, keep them in the open, and then maybe if you want to still do something with the dozer, you follow up with a crack, or even that pistol that he has, or just leave them there and let the rest of the team shoot it down, whatever that is. And there's that cool play that sometimes you can pull off on certain maps. Typically, I would say on Into the Dark and Tomb World, where you can use mine from the equipment, from the generic equipment selection, to punch someone with a dozer into a mine, and then combined deal them 2d3 plus 4 damage. And that is typically enough for you to kill anything in melee as a follow up. So there's that.
It's definitely
Medic.
it's a
Yeah,
very
sorry.
fun ability, and I'm always itching with the dozer whenever my opponent drops a mine, like with the trap master from Wolf Scouts, or with the Cassikin mine layer. I'm always start measuring out my dozer charge ranges to see if I can sock them into it.
Yeah, yeah. The problem I have with that is that those still has short legs, so I typically try to rely on my own mines. I haven't yet had a chance to push someone into their own mine, but I did manage to push a squig into a mine right next to another orc, which obviously ended up in fireworks. Nothing happened, but it was a very cinematic play. GW could easily create another high quality preview for Kill Team based on that play. So there's that. But yeah, medic is something that grew on me over the many games that I played. I didn't like it at first, but now I do like him a bit more. Um, he doesn't come into to every single opponent, but whenever you want that fourth attack or simply the potential for you to prevent a double kill from an opponent where they plan to charge, kill in melee, and then kill another one in shooting, this is where you may want to have a medic. And last one is locator, and I was like a bit on and off when it comes to locator, but I would say that these days I typically consider him only on Into the Dark and Tomb World, where I can see that there are certain places where you can say, okay, as long as I have Seek Light, I can get you. Otherwise, I just consider him as too much of a setup. You don't want to oversaturate your team with operatives that have support roles only, and then I leave him on the bench. So that will be my team selection.
Yeah, definitely. I think Seek Light and Ignore Obscuring is a very valuable tool to have access to, although it's not always something that you need, I suppose.
Yeah, that's the other thing. Like we have to keep in mind that these operatives are quite short, so we might laugh at that, but it actually may come up way more often than you would imagine, where it's difficult to have both your locator and whoever is supposed to shoot both be in a good position to move, do their thing, and for both of them to see the target, and on top of that, to be positioned in such a way that you don't get blasted in return. So that's one of the reasons is that it's so taxing that sometimes it's just, if you don't know how to play with that operative, maybe it's just better to leave him home and just take someone else instead. So there's that.
Makes plenty of sense to me. Um, Finally, I guess equipment. What do you reckon?
Crag grenades, crag grenades, crag grenades. This is probably like you said, plasma knives. I agree with that. In most cases, you take plasma knives, and but there's another great thing about this team, and one that makes me like them into certain matchups more than other people do, is that this team has very high consistency of dealing damage in increments of 5, because like crack grenades with grudge, crit for 5 damage, plasma knife, crit for 5 damage, beamer or missile launcher, base damage is 5, and that means that melee teams, raveners, goats, these teams, like they don't like using you dealing them damage with 5 damage points every single time you resolve a success, because that messes up the fancy breakpoints. So yeah, always crack grenades, always plasma knives. Um, the equipment that I don't like is definitely stun grenades, but I do play it every now and then into Mandrakes, just because this is a matchup where I unfortunately think that as of now, you need to take that risk to roll a 3 up, and if you do, you will be in a better spot and maybe you'll pull something off. If you don't, you're in a losing position anyway, so don't bother with that. But getting back to the equipment that I like to take, so yeah, it's typically crack grenades, plasma knives, then excavation tools as my third one, and then the other two will typically be used between light heavy barricades and or ladders. Yeah, and every now and then I'll switch something from the barricade slash ladder selection with a mine for a dozer. So yeah, that's what I would do.
And then tac ops. So you say retrieval most of the time, especially synergizes well with excavation tools. Even if the guy who retrieves dies, you can then pick up the tokens very easily with your other guys. Would you ever consider plant banner or like flank into elites? I don't know.
So I'll start with Plant Banner. Plant Banner is one which you can consider, but I um, I don't like this one because it requires you to sit in one place babysitting your banner, where in most cases you will be babysitting a banner with two APL. And I know people may say, "Oh yeah, but you've got need keeps, so you can actually have an extra virtual APL on that banner, but it would require you to spend command points for it. So this is not something that you particularly would like to do just to have a better chance of scoring your tack up. I think that Pad Banner will be better in a team that inherently represents more free APL operatives that can hold it, or has built-in icons that do not require any further investment. So that's why I would like probably try to stay away from Banner. The first time I played Plan Banner, I thought like, yeah, this is actually great with this team. I can fly with my jump pack on top of a building, plant a banner, and it's gonna be great. And because it was the first tournament I played on the Crit Up 25 set, I forgot that you have to actually then stay next to your banner and just babysit it there. So I forgot that I'm not going to score those victory points if I move away, and that actually cost me the game. And then like after that tournament, it was the first one on the new Crit Up pack. I realized this is not a tack up I want to play because I cannot just sacrifice my best operative to fly on top of a vantage and just sit on a banner and try to kill everything around him that can potentially get to him, because it's way too risky to put so many eggs in one basket. You can score your points more easily elsewhere. But I guess like that's the banner. I say more easy. When I take retrieval, you can if you play it, at least this is the way I play it. I can typically get around 4 points. The fifth and the sixth one are a question mark and very much depend on the opponent's team, what they do, their strategy, and how they like intend to deny it if they do. So don't get your hopes so high that you're gonna, oh, I'm gonna score 6 points because this is what I used to do with Plan Beacons with a team previously. So it's gonna be easy. It's not as easy, but you just have to play around that, plan around that. Um, when it comes to Envoy, I will sometimes pick it up versus certain elite teams on certain maps. So basically, I sit down at a table and I ask myself, how easy will it be for me to get to their point without too many resources committed to that, too much commitment. Uh, and then the alternative question is that, is it possible for me to just sneak in an operative on a flank and score Envoy in my last activation? And ideally, you want that operative to be someone who you can potentially like not throw away, but like lose without too much pain. And if you do get with them first, then you move and throw a crack. So there's that. So Envoy will be naturally better on long edge deployment, I'd say. Um, yeah, so that's Envoy. I sometimes do take it, but in most cases it's just retrieval. It just puts a lower tax on your mind as well. Like if you're playing a tournament, if you play the same thing for the whole day. I know it sounds stupid, but it doesn't require you to shift your overall strategy too much. if you're playing that opposed to many different like tac ops every single game, and most players will play one or two anyway. Um, the third one, the third recon one is one I would never use because it requires your opponent to play your game, and it requires you to spend potentially too much APL for the possibility not to score anything. So there's that. And what else is in
Martyrs.
security? Martyrs should not exist. It's not a tac op. I'm sorry. Um, it has like 15 different conditions, and half of those are fully controlled by the opponent. Like I get it. If you want to play Martyrs in like a friendly, casual setting, uh, knock yourself out, do whatever you want to do. But when it comes to competitive play, I can see so many problems with Martyrs and your opponent just doing one thing that doesn't really cost them that much just to prevent you from scoring Martyrs. So yeah, I would never take Martyrs in a competitive setting as of now.
Fair enough. What about like game plan? How would you say that the typical game with Hearthkin Salvagers is looking for you? Would you tend to try and like rush down your opponent and kill everyone? Would you try and hang back? Are you trying to look for a certain amount of points on tack up, or to dominate the crit up, or even to, take control over the kill up because you think, as you say, they're hard to shift?
So I think that rushing forward is the picking up the way to go because your threat range is, I mean, Halfkin's threat range is shorter than that of the opponent. Um, so if you put too many bodies forward too early, that means that they can stage asymmetrical threats, and they will kill you. You won't kill them, and you don't want to trade your models from behind. And by that I mean you don't want to, and I guess that would apply not only to Halfkin but in general. Um, you ideally you don't want to be in a position where they kill your guy and then you kill whatever killed your guy, and then they do it again and you kill that expanded operative, because this very often will put you behind and you have to catch up somehow. So typically I would just stay back and plan what I want to be in turning point, end of turning point 2 and 3. That is very important, to look at your operatives when you deploy them and think, where do you want to have them in turning point, like end of turning point 2, end of turning point 3. You won't be doing that for every single operative because it's not really possible, even if you play a lot, because your plan will change depending on what your opponent does. But you don't really have to leave your deployment too much, even though you're on short legs in turning point 1. So I would probably stage back, plan who is supposed to play the crit up on my home objective, who's supposed to do it on the middle objective. Depending on the mission, sometimes you can just give the middle objective away just because you know that that means that they will have an operative there, and you can stage for turning point 3 to kill it and then take it back on turning point 3 and 4, blah blah blah. So there's a lot that comes to it, but what I would say is that generally speaking, I don't want to rush forward. I don't want to throw my jump pack away. I don't want to trade my jump pack for operatives early on. Ideally, I want to have my jump pack being, if he has to be traded, then trade him in turning point 4. Um, then the models that will be slightly further up will be Thane and Dozer because they're more tanky. They can sometimes survive a charge thanks to their abilities, and maybe even kill the opponent's operative. So they will be a bit more forward. Um, try not to throw cracks with your leader, because sometimes it's tempting because his plasma pistol is only 3.5, so it's like, it's a worse crack grenade, but try not to do it because you need those crack grenades elsewhere. And yeah, and if you're getting the last activation, then you may want to have your let's say grenadier a bit further up as well, because then if you win the initiative, you can threaten with the grenadier. Otherwise, you want to probably stage in such a way that your grenadier won't die too easily. What else? Yeah, my game plan often assumes that I don't want to take initiative turning point two, which translates well into what I said about being patient and staging defensively and just waiting for your opponent to come to you. Because in many cases they will have to, just because you will out activate them, and that means that they have to come to you. Yeah, that will be my high level plan. And of course, as with anything else I said today, I'm happy to be entirely wrong. And if you are of a different opinion, like let's Dan know in the comments, and I'll read those comments. And yeah, I'm looking forward to learning from this experience myself.
Yeah, it definitely seems like it's worked for you a lot. So the the practice as well as the theory is definitely there, I would say. And I found success with a similar thing. Sort of when I came to play them, I thought, what worked out well for Bart? So bringing us out, what went well? Like, sort of, what are some of the cool plays? So I generally find, the grenadier to guard a point with the utility grenade, especially good against those tac ops like install devices or retrieval that need action points on the objective, or indeed just when they're trying to tap the objective for one of those missions. And the banner ploy, need keeps or whatever it's called, especially with an extra APL on one of your operatives, then gives you a 4 to potentially, sneakily grab the home objective off of your opponent or to retrieve it or something.
Yeah, yeah, but you made a really good point about the utility grenade as well. Um, the grenadier that dwarves have access to is one of the better grenadiers, because it can also throw stun grenades and smoke grenades. So
Mm.
it may be very situational, but like even if you don't take the stun grenades, because in many cases, as I said, I don't like to do it. I think it's too risky. If your opponent gives you an obvious situation where this is a good stun grenades into three models, then you can still throw it to the grenadier, the utility grenades as well, um, where you can lock down your objective for the mid objective from being tapped. Just keep in mind that your operatives also suffer the penalty of that utility grenade. So you have to plan it in such a way that you'll throw it far enough that there will be just a tiny bit of the objective, which is not covered by the utility grenade on your side of the board. And then you can say, okay, so if I had an operative exactly here, then I'm going to be able to click it without the penalty, and everything else is covered by the utility grenade. And an important thing, the utility grenade goes through turning points like smoke grenades do. So in many cases, you can future proof from your opponent, like winning the initiative and then coming into your objective and then planting device then or whatnot. So that's a good thing. And I guess another conclusion that comes out of that is that with all of the plays and tools available to Halfkin, they are they may not be the best at playing their own tac ops these days, because it's definitely much harder than during the planned beacons days. However, what they're very good at is make it more difficult for your opponent to score their attack ops, and that will give you that edge in many games where you look at, okay, so I should actually come out ahead by a tiny margin, because even though my attack ops are not that easy scored, yours will be more difficult. So that's that.
Yep, definitely some some stuff to think about with what you want to be doing with the team there. Finally, like, what are some of the weaknesses? So know your enemy type of thing. Firstly, it's important to understand that as salvagers, like, how am I going to try and mitigate this? What's my plan if someone tries to exploit these weaknesses? Or indeed, if you're going up against salvagers, what are some of the ways you'd recommend people to try and deal with the team? Or what would you say that they struggled with?
Dwarves are not elves. They're not weak. They have no weaknesses. I'm just kidding. So your weaknesses. Let's start with mandrakes. But aside from that, maybe what is let's try to find a positive and try to learn from that Mandrake matchup. The reason why it's so bad is that no matter what you do as the halfkin player, he will always outrange you. He can stay safe and he can start that trade off in a way that he wants with and where he wants on the board with mantras because they have so much movement and mobility, and he can very easily shift from one flank to the other thanks to that teleport. Dwarves can't do that. Where once you committed the operatives to a certain part of the board, apart from Jump Pack Warrior, this is where they will be. So there's that. There's definitely a higher degree of mispositioning potential because by the time you reach turning point 3, you may realize, well, actually, I can now see that this operative should have been positioned in a slightly different way, and now I can't do what I would like to do with that model. So it's definitely maybe not a weakness, but a difficulty coming with that team. That positioning is a bit more important or more difficult when it comes to weakness. Threat range is definitely a weakness. Apart that's why again you don't want to throw away your jump pack because once you do, you're a very slow team. Um, what else would be the big weakness? If someone can spam crits in melee, because crits in shooting are not as relevant thanks to sturdy, but crits in melee, and all of a sudden your operatives like Thane, who are supposed to tank a bit more damage thanks to the Justice Scratch, will just fold into strikes, and that's not gonna end up well for you. Um, yeah, I would say, and the last weakness is if someone can out activate you and deal damage from very far, like Brook Brothers can. This is probably a place where you don't want to be because this team relies on at the very least even activation count and doesn't find itself so happy dealing with teams that can out activate them. So I guess that's probably the weakness. People say, oh, they should struggle into melee teams. Like I've played many games into Raveners, into Goats. I guess the most difficult melee team will be Goremongers, but even then, if you plan well enough, it's okay. It's definitely playable. So there's that. Yeah, overall it's a good team, I'd say. But I always rate them too high in comparison to the rest of our community, so probably not the best idea to listen to what I'm saying.
I mean, you do want them to be good, right? As well as like sort of the real opinion,
Yeah,
special
that's
maybe
the thing.
dwarves.
In my assessment, um, this team is like consistently proving to me that I should put them in like bottom of 8 here, where this is what my heart tells me, but what my mind tells me is that this is crazy. They shouldn't be that high. So there's that. And I've seen them in the depths of D tier, and it's like, oh no, you should discard this team. They're not competitively viable. And I guess, well, Kill Team is not a game that's big enough for us to say, oh, we've got enough data to support that. Um, Between different communities, different metagames, and kill team choices, we'll get to different conclusions and different results. Like it's enough to say that if I look at the metagame at the tournaments where I often play, we have almost no Go Among Us players anymore, and I hear that there are more Among Us players elsewhere. So it's like stuff like that can easily warp our perception.
Absolutely. Well, thank you very much for sharing your tips with us, Bart. I'm sure I'm sure it may come back to bite you in a tournament where someone has heard you discuss all of the weaknesses and tries to use them against you. But thank you very much.
This is a very good timing because in a few days' time I will be elbows deep in new Sisters of Battle rules, and the reason why it's perfectly timed for me that we have this conversation now. Not that I would want to be I need to keep my advantages to myself and all of that, but it just lines up perfectly that there's another team that's very dear to my heart coming up very soon. So I'm likely to switch to new battle nuns anyway. So there you go.
All right. Well,
Unless we get something fancy in the balanced data slate, which
ooh,
will hopefully come out next week. So if that happens, I may feel even forced to play dwarves again.
wow, intriguing. All right. Well, thank you for your
Shocking.
insightful comments. That's
And
thank
thank
you
you
for watching.
for letting me to express my opinion for such a long time and taking over the majority of this episode.
That's okay. You had some good stuff to say. All right. Thank you so much, everybody. I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye bye.